It is the morning of October 13th, 2008. You are waking up. Slowly, the alarm on your bedside clock radio goes off at 6:45 in the morning. It is a Monday. The room is dim. The curtains are a pale beige color, and they let in just a sliver of gray October light. You lie still for a moment. You do not want to get up. The bed is warm. The pillow is soft. You pull the blanket up a little higher. The alarm continues. It is a soft buzzing sound. Not too loud, just loud enough. You reach over and press the snooze button. You close your eyes again. The room is quiet now. Outside, there is a faint sound of traffic. A car passes slowly, then another one. It is Monday morning in a mid-sized American city. The street outside is wet from last night's rain. You can tell this because the tires make a soft hissing sound on the pavement. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out. The blanket is heavy and warm. You drift for a few minutes longer. The alarm goes off again. This time you sit up. You sit on the edge of the bed for a moment. You are wearing a gray t-shirt and blue flannel pajama pants. Your feet touch the carpet. The carpet is a neutral tan color. It is slightly worn near the door where you walk most often. You stand up slowly. You shuffle to the bathroom. The bathroom light flickers once before coming on fully. It is a fluorescent bulb, and it makes a faint humming sound. You stand at the sink. You look at yourself in the mirror for a moment. You do not think much about what you see. You are tired. You turn on the cold water. You splash some water on your face. It is cold. You reach for the hand towel hanging on the small ring next to the sink. The towel is a faded blue. You dry your face slowly. You brush your teeth. The toothpaste is a standard mint flavor. You brush for about 2 minutes. You spit. You rinse. You turn off the water. You walk back into the bedroom. You open the closet door. You look at your work clothes hanging there. You pick a pair of dark trousers and a light blue button-down shirt. You lay them on the bed and begin to get dressed. You go downstairs to the kitchen. The kitchen has linoleum floors in a cream and tan pattern. There is a small round table near the window with 2 chairs. On the table there is yesterday's newspaper. You do not pick it up yet. You go to the coffee maker first. You fill the reservoir with water from the tap. You measure out 2 scoops of ground coffee. The coffee is a medium roast from a can you bought at the grocery store last week. It cost $3.49. You place the filter in the basket, add the grounds, close the lid, and press the button. The machine begins to gurgle and hiss. You stand there for a moment listening to it. Then you go to the refrigerator. You open it. Inside there is a carton of orange juice, some leftover pasta in a plastic container, a block of cheese, 2 eggs, and a half-empty bottle of ketchup. You take out the orange juice. You pour yourself a small glass. You put the carton back. You close the refrigerator door. The coffee maker continues its slow, rhythmic process. You sit down at the table. You pick up the newspaper. It is the local paper. The front page carries a large headline. The headline says something about the stock market. It says something about the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Last week, the market fell by more than 700 points in a single day. Then it fell again. Then it rose slightly. Then it fell again. The numbers have been changing every day for weeks now. You stare at the headline for a moment. You do not fully understand all of the details of what is happening, but you know that something large is going wrong. You have heard people talking about it at work. You have seen it on the television. You set the newspaper down and look out the window. The backyard is small. There is a wooden fence along the back. The grass is still wet from last night's rain. A small gray bird lands on the fence post for a moment and then flies away. The coffee maker makes a final sputtering sound and then is quiet. You get up and pour yourself a cup. You do not take cream or sugar. You carry the cup back to the table and sit down again. You drink your coffee slowly. It is hot. You hold the mug with both hands. It warms your palms. You look at the newspaper again. The article below the main headline talks about bank failures. It mentions names like Washington Mutual and Wachovia. These are banks that many people used. Banks that seemed, not very long ago, like permanent and solid things. Now they are gone or nearly gone. You read the first few paragraphs slowly. The language is technical. Words like liquidity, insolvency, and credit default swaps appear in the text. You understand some of these words and not others. You turn the page. There is an article about unemployment. The unemployment rate has been rising. More and more people are losing their jobs. Companies are cutting back. Car manufacturers in Michigan are struggling. Retail stores are closing. Construction has nearly stopped in many parts of the country. You fold the newspaper and set it aside. You finish your coffee. You get up and rinse the mug in the sink. You place it on the drying rack. You go back upstairs to put on your shoes. You sit on the edge of the bed again. You tie your left shoe first, and then your right. The laces on the right shoe are slightly frayed near the tip. You have been meaning to replace them. You stand up and look at yourself in the mirror on the back of the closet door. You look presentable enough. You pick up your watch from the nightstand. It is a simple watch with a black band and a white face. You put it on your left wrist. You fasten the clasp. You check the time. It is 7:22. You need to leave by 7:40 at the latest to make it to work by 8:30. You have a few minutes. You go back downstairs. You pick up your jacket from the hook near the front door. It is a dark navy wool jacket. Not very heavy. October mornings have been cool, but not cold. You check the pockets. Your keys are there. Your wallet is in the inside pocket. You pat your chest to confirm it. You open the front door. The air outside is cool and damp. You can smell the wet leaves on the sidewalk. There are several large oak trees on your street, and their leaves have begun to turn. Some are a deep orange. Some are still partly green. A few have fallen onto the sidewalk and are pressed flat against the concrete, dark and wet. You step outside and pull the door closed behind you. You check that it is locked. You walk to your car. It is parked in the short driveway next to the house. It is a dark green sedan. It is 11 years old. It runs well enough. There is a small rust spot near the rear wheel well on the driver's side. You have been meaning to have that looked at. You open the door and get in. The car smells faintly of old fabric and something slightly sweet you cannot identify. You put on your seatbelt. You insert the key and turn it. The engine turns over once and then starts. You let it run for a moment. The radio comes on automatically. It is set to a news station. The radio announcer is speaking in a measured tone. He is talking about the markets in Asia. The Tokyo Stock Exchange has been volatile. European markets opened lower this morning. There is going to be an emergency meeting of finance ministers from the G7 countries later this week. Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson is expected to make a statement. The Federal Reserve has been cutting interest rates. Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, has been in many meetings. These are the kinds of sentences that fill the radio. You listen without fully absorbing every word. You back out of the driveway carefully. You check both mirrors. The street is mostly empty. A woman walks a small dog on the opposite sidewalk. She is wearing a green coat, and her breath makes small puffs of steam in the cool air. You put the car in drive. You begin your commute. The drive to work takes about 25 minutes when traffic is normal. This morning the traffic is fairly light. You pass through several neighborhoods. The houses along the way are similar to yours. They are modest houses with small front lawns. Some have for sale signs in front of them. You notice this. There seem to be more for sale signs than there were a year ago. In some cases, the signs have been there a long time. The grass around them is long and unmowed. These are probably foreclosures. Foreclosures have become a common word lately. You pass a strip mall. One of the stores in it is empty. The windows are papered over. It used to be a shoe store. Before that, it was something else. You cannot remember what. You stop at a red light. The car next to you has a small crack along the bottom of the windshield. The light changes. You continue driving. You arrive at your workplace a few minutes before 8:30. It is a low brick building in a small business park. There is a parking lot in front. You find a spot near the back. You turn off the engine. You sit for a moment. The radio is still on. The announcer is now talking about a press conference that is scheduled for later in the day. Someone from the Treasury Department will be speaking. You turn off the radio. You get out of the car. You lock it. You walk across the parking lot. Your footsteps are quiet on the asphalt. Another car pulls in slowly behind you. You nod to the driver as he gets out. It is Gerald from accounting. He nods back. Neither of you says anything. You both walk toward the building entrance. Gerald holds the door for you. You thank him. You walk inside. The office is a medium-sized open floor plan with several rows of desks. The lighting is fluorescent. The ceiling tiles are white. The carpet is gray. Along one wall there is a row of windows that look out onto the parking lot. Near the entrance there is a small break room with a coffee maker, a microwave, and a refrigerator. The coffee maker in the break room is already on. Someone must have come in early. You pass the break room and go to your desk. Your desk is in the third row. It has a computer monitor, a keyboard, a telephone, a small notepad, and a stapler. There is also a small plant in a brown ceramic pot. The plant is doing reasonably well. You sit down. You press the button to turn on your computer. While it boots up, you take off your jacket and hang it on the back of your chair. You look at your notepad. There are a few items from Friday that you did not finish. You add a few new things to the list. Your computer finishes loading. You open your email. There are 17 new messages since Friday afternoon. Most of them are routine. One is from your manager asking for an update on a project you have been working on. One is a company-wide announcement. The announcement says that management is aware of the current economic climate and wants to reassure employees that the company is in a stable position. It says something about prudent financial management and a conservative balance sheet. You read it twice. It does not make you feel particularly reassured, but it does not alarm you either. You have heard similar language before. You close that email and open the one from your manager. You begin to type a reply. The office around you fills slowly as more people arrive. There is the sound of chairs rolling, keyboards clicking, and quiet conversations beginning. The day is starting. By 9:30, the office is mostly full. You have been working steadily. You are updating a spreadsheet that tracks inventory levels for one of your main accounts. The numbers have been declining for the past 2 quarters. Orders are coming in more slowly than before. Your company sells industrial components. When construction slows and manufacturing pulls back, demand for industrial components tends to fall. You have been watching this happen gradually over the past several months. You enter a new row of data. You check a formula. The formula is correct. You save the file. You lean back in your chair for a moment and look at the ceiling. The fluorescent light directly above your desk has a slight flicker. It has been flickering for about a week. You have mentioned it to the facilities coordinator. She said she would put in a work order. The light continues to flicker gently. At 10 o'clock there is a brief department meeting. Everyone gathers in the small conference room at the end of the hall. There are 8 of you. You sit in the chairs along the wall and around the small rectangular table. Your manager stands at the front. She has a printed agenda. The meeting covers routine topics, project updates, client communications, a new filing protocol for expense reports. Near the end of the meeting, someone asks about layoffs. The question is asked in a quiet voice, almost as if the person is not sure they should be asking it. Your manager pauses. She says that she has no information to share about any personnel changes at this time. She says that if anything changes, the team will be informed appropriately. The person who asked the question nods. The meeting ends at 10:25. People drift back to their desks. You return to your desk and pour yourself a second cup of coffee from the break room. You take it back to your desk. You continue with the spreadsheet. Around 11 o'clock, you take a short break and walk to the water cooler near the windows. You fill a paper cup with cold water. You stand there for a moment and look out the window at the parking lot. The sky is overcast, but not stormy. The oak trees at the edge of the lot are swaying very slightly in the wind. A delivery truck pulls into the lot and parks near the side entrance. The driver gets out, opens the back of the truck, and carries a box inside. You watch this briefly and then return to your desk. You throw away the paper cup. You sit down. You look at your notepad. You cross off one item and circle another. The morning continues. At noon, you eat lunch at your desk. You brought your lunch from home. It is a sandwich on white bread with turkey and mustard and a few slices of tomato. You also have an apple and a small bag of pretzels. You eat slowly while reading an online news article. The article is about the TARP program, which stands for the Troubled Asset Relief Program. This is a $700 billion program that was recently passed by Congress and signed into law by President George W. Bush. The program is designed to allow the Treasury Department to purchase toxic assets and equity from financial institutions in order to strengthen the financial sector. You read this explanation. You read it again. You eat a pretzel. The language is dense and the concepts are not entirely clear to you, but you understand the basic shape of it. The government is going to spend an enormous amount of money to try to prevent the financial system from collapsing. You think about what $700 billion means. You have seen this number written out in articles. $700 billion. The zeros are many. You finish your sandwich. You eat the apple slowly, starting from the side and eating in a circle around to the other side. The apple is a Fuji apple. It is crisp and slightly sweet. You put the core in your desk trash can. You eat the remaining pretzels. You fold the empty bag. You put it in the trash as well. You close the news article. You open the spreadsheet again. The afternoon light through the windows has shifted slightly. The gray sky has become a slightly lighter gray. You work through the afternoon without much interruption. The office is quieter in the afternoon than in the morning. People are more settled. The conversation level drops. The keyboards click steadily. At 2:15, your phone rings. It is a client. The client is a plant manager at a manufacturing facility in Ohio. He is calling to discuss an order that has been delayed. He is polite but concerned. His facility has also been dealing with a slowdown in business, and he needs to manage costs carefully. You speak with him for about 15 minutes. You take notes on your notepad. You tell him that you will check on the status of the delayed shipment and get back to him by the end of the day. He thanks you. You hang up. You look at your notes. You pick up the phone again and call the warehouse. The warehouse coordinator puts you on hold for a few minutes. You wait. You look out the window while you wait. A crow lands on the roof of a car in the parking lot and then flies away. The warehouse coordinator comes back on the line and gives you an update. The shipment will go out tomorrow. You thank him and hang up. You call the client in Ohio back and leave him a voicemail with the information. At 3:30, you go to the break room to get a glass of water. Two of your colleagues are there, standing near the window. They are having a quiet conversation. You hear one of them say the words mortgage and underwater. You pour your water and listen for a moment without making it obvious that you are listening. The colleague is talking about a neighbor who bought a house 2 years ago and now owes more on the mortgage than the house is currently worth. This is called being underwater on a mortgage. It is becoming a common situation. House prices have fallen sharply in many parts of the country. People who bought homes near the peak of the housing market, often with loans that had adjustable interest rates, are finding that their monthly payments are increasing while the value of their homes is decreasing. Some of them are walking away from their homes entirely. You take your glass of water and go back to your desk. The afternoon passes slowly and steadily. You finish the spreadsheet. You send it to your manager with a brief note. You answer 2 more emails. You file some papers. At 4:45, you begin to wind down. You save all your open files. You close your programs one by one. You put your notepad in the top drawer. You stand up and put on your jacket. You straighten a few things on your desk. You say goodnight to the people nearby. Gerald from accounting is still at his desk. He nods without looking up. The woman at the desk near the window says goodnight in a quiet voice. You walk toward the exit. You pass the break room. The coffee maker is off. Someone has left a coffee mug on the counter. You do not stop. You push through the glass door and step outside. The evening air is cooler than the morning was. The sky is a deep gray and the light is already beginning to fade. It is mid-October and the days are getting shorter. You walk across the parking lot to your car. The asphalt is dry. There are fewer cars than this morning. You unlock your car and get in. You start the engine. You turn on the headlights. The radio comes on again. The news announcer is still talking about the markets. The Dow Jones closed up today, gaining nearly 900 points. This is the largest single-day point gain in the history of the Dow. Last week it posted one of its largest single-day losses. The swings have been enormous. You listen for a moment. You put the car in reverse. You back out of the space slowly. You drive toward the exit. The drive home takes slightly longer than the drive to work because of early evening traffic. You pass through an intersection where the light is stuck on a longer cycle than usual. You wait. The car in front of you has a bumper sticker that says something you cannot read from this distance. You wait. The light turns green. You continue. You stop at a gas station on the way home. Gas prices have actually come down somewhat in recent weeks. For a while they were very high, close to $4 per gallon in many places. Now they are lower. You fill the tank. You pay at the pump with your debit card. You replace the nozzle. You get back in the car. You continue home. The neighborhood looks the same as it did this morning. A little darker now, the porch lights of some houses beginning to come on. You pull into your driveway. You turn off the engine. You sit for a moment. The radio is still on. You turn it off. The silence is pleasant. You get out of the car. You lock it. You walk to the front door. You unlock it and go inside. The house is quiet. You hang your jacket on the hook. You take off your shoes and place them near the door. You walk into the kitchen. You open the refrigerator. You look at the contents. The eggs are still there. The leftover pasta. The orange juice. You decide to make eggs. You take out 2 eggs and a small block of butter. You put a pan on the stove. You turn the burner to medium. You add a small piece of butter. It melts slowly and begins to bubble at the edges. You crack the eggs into the pan. They sizzle gently. You let them cook. The yolks set slowly. You stand at the stove and watch them. You eat your eggs at the kitchen table. You also pour yourself a small glass of orange juice. The kitchen is quiet except for the faint sound of the refrigerator motor. You eat slowly. The eggs are simple and filling. You look out the window. It is dark outside now. The backyard is invisible behind the darkness and the reflection of the kitchen light in the glass. You finish your eggs. You rinse the plate and the pan in the sink. You put them in the drying rack. You pour the rest of the orange juice down the drain and rinse the glass. You turn off the kitchen light. You walk to the living room. You sit on the couch. You pick up the remote control. You turn on the television. The television comes on to a news channel. A financial correspondent is standing in front of a large screen showing graphs. The graphs show the movement of various stock indices over the past several weeks. The lines are jagged and dramatic. They fall steeply in some places and rise sharply in others. The correspondent is speaking quickly and with intensity. Words like systemic risk and global recession and credit freeze fill the broadcast. You watch for a few minutes. Then you change the channel. You find a program about nature. It is a documentary about the Amazon rainforest. The narrator has a calm voice. He is describing the daily patterns of rainfall in the forest. You watch this for a while. The footage is slow and green and lush. It is very different from the graphs on the news channel. You lean back on the couch. You pull a small blanket over your legs. The narrator continues in his calm voice. At 8 o'clock, you switch back to the news briefly. There is a report about Iceland. Iceland's banking system has essentially collapsed. The country's three major banks, Kaupthing, Landsbanki, and Glitnir, have all failed or been taken into government control within the past week. Iceland is a small country with a population of about 300,000 people. Its banking sector had grown to be enormously large relative to the size of its economy, roughly 10 times the country's entire annual GDP. When global credit markets froze, Icelandic banks could no longer finance their operations. The collapse happened very quickly. You watch the report. The footage shows the streets of Reykjavik, which look gray and quiet. People are shown in front of a bank building. A reporter speaks in Icelandic. A subtitle provides a translation. You watch. You change the channel again. You spend the next hour watching various programs without particular focus. A game show. The beginning of a police procedural that you have seen before. A short segment about cooking that you find somewhat soothing. By 9:15, you are beginning to feel tired. You turn off the television. The room is suddenly quiet and dark except for the small lamp on the end table next to the couch. You sit for a moment in the quiet. You hear a car pass outside. You hear the refrigerator in the kitchen. You hear nothing else. You fold the blanket and put it on the arm of the couch. You stand up. You stretch your arms above your head. You yawn. You walk to the front door and check that it is locked. It is. You walk through the kitchen and check the back door. It is also locked. You turn off the kitchen light. You walk upstairs. The bedroom is cool. You turn on the small lamp on the nightstand. The lamp casts a warm yellow circle of light. You go to the bathroom. You brush your teeth again. You wash your face with warm water. You dry your face with the blue towel. You turn off the bathroom light. You go back to the bedroom. You take off your clothes and fold them neatly on the chair near the window. You put on your gray t-shirt and your blue flannel pajama pants. You pull back the blanket and the sheet. You get into bed. The sheets are cool at first. You pull the blanket up. It is heavy and warm. You reach over and turn off the lamp on the nightstand. The room is dark. You can see the faint outline of the window against the night sky. A very faint orange glow from the street lamps outside shows through the gap in the curtains. You close your eyes. You lie still. The room is quiet. You think briefly about the spreadsheet you finished today. You think about the client in Ohio and the delayed shipment. You think about the company-wide email. You think about the news on the radio during the drive home. The 900-point gain, the largest single-day gain in history, but also the enormous losses of the weeks before. The system, you think, is behaving like something that has lost its balance, something tipping back and forth very dramatically. You do not think this thought in a particularly frightened way. You think it the way you think about something that is happening very far away, even though it is not far away at all. It is happening all around you. In the spreadsheet, in the for sale signs, in the empty store in the strip mall, In the conversation in the break room about being underwater, you breathe slowly. You let these thoughts settle. You think about Henry Paulson. You have been seeing his face on television frequently. He is a large man with a bald head. He has a serious expression. He used to be the chief executive of Goldman Sachs, one of the largest investment banks in the world. Now he is the Secretary of the Treasury. He has been working very long hours. People who cover the news have mentioned that he is barely sleeping, that he is making calls at all hours, that he is meeting with the president, with members of Congress, with central bankers from other countries, that he got down on one knee in front of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and asked her not to pull her party's support for the bailout bill. You heard this story on the radio. The image stays with you. A very powerful man on his knee. A bailout bill. $700 billion. You breathe. You close your eyes more firmly. You think about Ben Bernanke. He is the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He is a quiet man, an academic, an economist who spent his career studying the Great Depression of the 1930s. He wrote papers about it. He gave lectures about it. He thought deeply about how it happened and what made it so devastating and what could have been done differently. And now he finds himself in the middle of something that people are beginning to compare to that very event. Something that might be as large or nearly as large. He is cutting interest rates. He is flooding the financial system with liquidity. He is doing the things that, based on his research, were not done during the Depression. Whether it will be enough, no one knows yet. You think about this. A man who studied catastrophe now living inside one. You breathe. The room is very still. You think about Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was one of the oldest and largest investment banks in the United States. It was founded in 1850, before the Civil War. It had survived wars and panics and depressions and crashes for over 150 years. And then, on September 15, 2008, less than a month ago, it filed for bankruptcy. It was the largest bankruptcy filing in United States history. The firm had been heavily involved in mortgage-backed securities. When the housing market collapsed, those securities lost value rapidly. The firm could not cover its losses. Over one weekend, its leadership tried to find a buyer. Barclays, a British bank, was interested, but the deal fell apart. The British government declined to approve it quickly. And so, on a Monday morning in September, Lehman Brothers simply ceased to exist. 25,000 employees went to work that morning and found that there was nothing to go to work for. You breathe. You let that settle. You think about what a mortgage-backed security is. You have heard the phrase many times now. A mortgage is a loan taken out by a person to buy a house. For most of history, a bank would lend money for a mortgage and then hold that mortgage on its own books. The bank would receive monthly payments from the homeowner over 30 years. This was the normal way. But at some point, not so very long ago, someone had the idea of bundling many mortgages together and selling them as a kind of investment product, a security. Investors could buy these bundles and receive a portion of all the monthly mortgage payments. This seemed efficient. It spread risk, people said. It allowed banks to make more loans. It brought more money into the mortgage market. House prices began to rise. People borrowed more. Standards for who could get a mortgage became looser. People were given mortgages they perhaps should not have received. And then house prices stopped rising, and people began to default. And the securities backed by those mortgages began to lose value. You breathe. It is very quiet. You think about the word default. To default on a loan means to stop making payments. When a homeowner defaults on a mortgage, the bank that holds the mortgage can eventually take the house back through a process called foreclosure. The bank then tries to sell the house to recover its money. But if many homeowners are defaulting at the same time, and if many houses are going up for sale at the same time, the supply of houses increases and the price of houses falls. And as prices fall, more homeowners find themselves underwater, owing more than their homes are worth, and some of them choose to stop paying, causing more defaults, causing more foreclosures, causing prices to fall further. This is called a negative feedback loop, a self-reinforcing cycle. Each step makes the next step worse. You think about this lying in the dark. It is a slow and grinding kind of disaster, not an explosion. Mo. You think about Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns was another large investment bank. It ran into trouble earlier in 2008. In March, two of its hedge funds had collapsed the previous summer. By March of 2008, confidence in the firm had evaporated. Clients and creditors were pulling their money out. The firm was running out of cash. Over a weekend, the Federal Reserve arranged for JP Morgan Chase, another large bank, to purchase Bear Stearns at a very low price, $2 per share. At its peak, Bear Stearns stock had been worth around $170 per share. The Fed provided guarantees to JP Morgan to encourage the deal. This was an unusual step. The government was helping one bank absorb another. Some people were troubled by this. Some thought it was necessary. The debate continued. 6 months later, Lehman Brothers would fall, and this time the government would not intervene to save it. The decision not to save Lehman is one of the most debated decisions of the entire crisis. You breathe slowly. The blanket is warm. The room is dark. You are comfortable. You think about the words "too big to fail." This phrase has been used a great deal in recent weeks. The idea is that some financial institutions are so large, so deeply connected to so many other parts of the economy, that if they were allowed to fail, the damage would spread everywhere. Like removing a load-bearing wall from a building. The building might not immediately collapse, but it becomes much more fragile. A company that is too big to fail cannot be allowed to go under without causing enormous harm. This creates a problem. If a company knows it will be rescued no matter what, it may take greater risks than it otherwise would. It has less reason to be cautious. This is called moral hazard. The debate about too big to fail and moral hazard has been ongoing in economics for many years. But in October 2008, it is no longer an abstract debate. It is a very immediate practical question. You think about AIG. AIG stands for American International Group. It is a massive insurance company, one of the largest in the world. It had a division called AIG Financial Products that sold something called credit default swaps. A credit default swap is a kind of insurance contract. If a bond or a security defaults, the seller of the credit default swap pays out to the buyer. AIG sold enormous quantities of these contracts. When the mortgage-backed securities began to fail, AIG was on the hook for enormous sums of money. The company did not have enough money to pay. The U.S. government decided to bail out AIG. The initial bailout was $85 billion. The total eventually reached $180 billion. The government received a roughly 80% stake in the company in exchange. This was an extraordinary thing. The federal government became the majority owner of one of the world's largest private insurance companies. You breathe. You are sinking deeper into the bed. You think about the feeling in the country. There is a sense of uncertainty that you can feel in conversations and on faces. People are not panicking in the streets. Life continues to look mostly normal. People are going to work, buying groceries, watching television. But there is a kind of underlying unease, a sense that the ground beneath ordinary life has become less solid, that things that seemed permanent might not be permanent, that the rules that seemed fixed might not be fixed. Retirement savings have dropped in value. Pension funds are under pressure. People approaching retirement are looking at their account statements and seeing numbers much smaller than they expected. Younger people are watching the job market tighten. Banks are lending less. Small businesses are having trouble getting credit. The word recession is being used with increasing frequency and confidence. You breathe. The room is warm. Your thoughts are getting slower. You think about the political dimension of all this. It is also, simultaneously, an election year. The presidential election is only a few weeks away. Senator Barack Obama, a Democrat from Illinois, is running against Senator John McCain, a Republican from Arizona. The economic crisis has become a major issue in the campaign. McCain, who has been the Republican nominee since earlier in the year, made a comment in September that was widely criticized. He said that the fundamentals of the economy are strong. This was said just as the crisis was accelerating. The remark followed him. Obama, meanwhile, has been speaking steadily about economic inequality, about the struggles of the middle class, about the need for a different kind of economic policy. The polls show Obama with a significant lead. The country seems to want a change in direction. You think about all of this, lying in the dark, in your comfortable bed, in your ordinary house, at the end of an ordinary day in October 2008. You breathe slowly. You think about what will come next. You do not know what will come next. Nobody does. The people in charge, the ones staying up all night and making calls and drafting plans, they do not fully know either. They are making decisions with incomplete information under enormous pressure in real time. They are trying to prevent something worse from happening without being entirely sure what worse looks like or how close it is. Some economists believe the worst has already happened. Others believe the worst is still ahead. The unemployment rate will continue to rise for many months after this. It will reach 10% by the following year. The recession will officially be declared the deepest since the Great Depression. But you do not know this yet. Lying in your bed in October 2008, you only know the present. The cool room, the warm blanket, the quiet house, the wet leaves on the sidewalk outside, the gray October sky you will see again tomorrow morning. UBR. Your thoughts are becoming less organized now. They drift. You think about the newspaper on the kitchen table. You did not throw it away. You will read more of it tomorrow morning. You think about the coffee maker. You left the can of coffee on the counter. You think about the car, the rust spot near the rear wheel well. You should look into having that fixed. Maybe you can take it in on Saturday. You think about the leftover pasta in the refrigerator. You should eat that tomorrow rather than letting it sit. You think about the plant on your desk. It needs to be watered. You will do that in the morning. These small, practical thoughts move through your mind like very slow fish moving through still water. They are not important thoughts, but they are yours. You breathe. You are very close to sleep now. The room is dark and still. The curtains move just slightly from some faint breath of air coming through the window frame. The street lamp outside casts a very faint orange light through the curtain gap. You can barely see this. Your eyes are closed. The blanket is heavy and warm. The pillow is soft beneath your head. The mattress supports you evenly. You are lying on your back. Your arms are at your sides. Your breathing is slow. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. In. Out. The refrigerator hums distantly downstairs. A car passes outside, moving slowly, its tires making that soft hiss on the wet pavement. Then it is gone. Then there is silence. You breathe. The room breathes with you. The house is quiet. The street is quiet. The whole long October day is quiet now. The spreadsheets and the phone calls and the newspaper headlines and the radio voices are all quiet. It is only this: the dark room, the warm bed, the slow breath. You are asleep. But before you are fully asleep, there is one more thought. It is not really a thought, more of an image. You are standing outside your house in the early morning. The sidewalk is wet. The leaves are orange and pressed flat against the concrete. The sky is that deep, even gray of early October morning. And the street is quiet. All the houses are quiet. Somewhere down the block a light comes on in an upstairs window. Then another. People are waking up. People are beginning another day. The coffee makers are starting. The radios are turning on. The cars are backing out of driveways. The drives to work are beginning. The parking lots are filling. And in offices and banks and government buildings and trading floors and meeting rooms all across the country and across the world, people are trying to figure out what comes next. They are using complicated words and filling out forms and writing reports and making telephone calls. And underneath all of this, life continues. Ordinary life. The eggs in the pan. The apple eaten carefully from one side to the other. The blue towel on the ring by the sink. The rust spot near the wheel well that you keep meaning to fix. You breathe. The image fades. You are asleep. Tomorrow morning the alarm will go off at 6:45 again. You will press snooze. You will lie for a few minutes longer in the warmth. Then you will sit up. You will shuffle to the bathroom. The fluorescent light will flicker once. You will look at yourself in the mirror. You will run cold water over your face. You will dry yourself with the blue towel. You will go downstairs and make coffee and pour orange juice and sit at the table and read the newspaper. The headline will be different from today's, but it will be about similar things. Markets, banks, unemployment, government programs, decisions being made in large rooms by people with serious faces. You will read some of it. You will fold the newspaper. You will drink your coffee with both hands around TH. This is what most days are like, even in the middle of enormous events. Even when the newspapers say things that seem impossible. Even when the numbers on the screen are moving in ways that experts say have not been seen in decades. Most of daily life stays the same. The same routines. The same small tasks. The same familiar objects. The carpet in the bedroom. The drying rack in the kitchen. The jacket hanging on the hook. The keys in the pocket. The watch on the left wrist. The alarm at 6:45. These things do not change even when very large things are changing around them. This is partly reassuring and partly strange when you think about it. That catastrophe and routine can exist at the same time in the same life. That you can be reading about the largest bankruptcy in American history and also thinking about whether the rust spot near the wheel well is getting worse. That the world can be tilting significantly on its axis, and also you can be eating pretzels at your desk and listening to the quiet click of keyboards around you. You breathe. You are fully asleep now. The thoughts stop. The room is dark. The blanket is warm. The pillow is soft. You breathe. You breathe. You breathe. The days of October 2008 pass one by one. Each one is like the one before it, and also different. The headlines change. The numbers change. The faces on television change. Sometimes there are announcements. The Treasury Department announces a new program. The Federal Reserve announces a rate cut. The European Central Bank cuts rates as well. The Bank of England. The central banks of several other countries coordinate their actions in an unusual display of international cooperation. On October 8th, several major central banks around the world cut interest rates simultaneously. This is the first time something like this has happened. It is meant to send a signal that the major economies of the world are working together to prevent a complete collapse. Whether it works is a question that will take time to answer. Markets react. Sometimes they go up. Sometimes they go down. The swings continue. You read about these things in the newspaper each morning. You listen to them on the radio in the car. You look at your spreadsheet. The numbers in your spreadsheet do not change dramatically from day to day. They change slowly, a little lower each week, but steadily. You update them. You save the file. You go to lunch. You think about what the word recession means, technically. A recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. This means that the total output of goods and services produced by the economy decreases for 6 months in a row. Economists measure this through something called GDP, Gross Domestic Product. GDP is the total monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country in a given period. When GDP shrinks for 2 consecutive quarters, that is a recession. The National Bureau of Economic Research, which is the official body that declares recessions in the United States, will later determine that this recession began in December 2007. So it has actually already been going on for almost a year by October 2008. But it was not obvious at first. The decline was gradual. It is only now, in the autumn of 2008, with the financial crisis accelerating, that the recession is becoming visible and undeniable to most people. You think about these definitions lying in the dark. They are clear and precise, and yet somehow insufficient to describe what is actually happening. You breathe. The bed is warm. You think about the housing market. The housing market in the United States had been rising steadily for many years. Through the 1990s and into the 2000s, house prices climbed. More and more people bought homes. The homeownership rate in the country reached record levels. This was seen, at the time, as a good thing. Homeownership was associated with stability, with wealth building, with the American dream in a fairly literal sense. Policies were put in place to encourage more people to buy homes. Lending standards were relaxed. New kinds of mortgage products were created. Adjustable rate mortgages, interest-only loans, no documentation loans, sometimes called liar loans, where the borrower did not have to verify their income. Subprime mortgages, offered to people with poor credit histories at high interest rates. These products allowed more people to buy homes. They also created enormous risks that were not fully understood or not fully acknowledged at the time. You breathe. Your thoughts move slowly. The room is very dark. You think about the word subprime. A prime borrower is someone with a strong credit history, a stable income, and a solid financial position. A subprime borrower is someone with a weaker credit history, a less stable income, or other risk factors. Subprime mortgages are loans made to subprime borrowers. These borrowers are at higher risk of defaulting. Because of this higher risk, the interest rates on subprime mortgages are higher. Lenders charge more to borrowers who are less likely to repay. This seems logical, but problems arose when subprime mortgages were bundled into securities and sold to investors. The securities were rated by credit rating agencies, companies whose job it is to assess the risk of financial instruments. Some of these subprime mortgage securities received very high ratings, AAA ratings, indicating very low risk. This was because the rating models assumed that house prices would continue to rise, and also because the models did not fully account for what would happen if housing markets declined broadly and simultaneously across the country. You breathe. It is quiet. Your eyes are heavy. You think about how interconnected everything became. The mortgage is connected to the security. The security is connected to the investor. The investor might be a pension fund in Norway, or a municipal bond fund in Florida, or a money market fund that ordinary people use to store their savings, or a German bank, or a Japanese insurance company. The connections spread in every direction. This was called financial globalization. Capital flowing freely across borders, seeking the highest returns, spreading risk across the widest possible number of participants. In theory, this spreading of risk was supposed to make the system more stable. If many people share a small piece of a risk, no single person is badly hurt when the risk materializes. But in practice, when the risk materialized, it turned out that the risk was everywhere simultaneously. The connections that were supposed to spread the risk had instead spread the contagion. Everyone was affected, not just American banks. Banks in Iceland and Germany and Britain and Ireland. The whole global financial system shuddered at once. You breathe. Your mind is quieting. The thoughts are becoming lighter. You think about the people at the very center of the crisis. The traders who created the securities. The bankers who approved the deals. The rating agency analysts who gave the high ratings. The executives who made enormous bonuses in the years when everything seemed to be going up. They were not, for the most part, evil people. Some of them understood the risks they were taking. Some of them did not. Some of them believed the models. Some of them believed that house prices would not fall on a national scale because they had not fallen on a national scale in living memory. Some of them were swept up in the momentum of a system that was working brilliantly year after year until it was not. Some of them ignored warning signs. Some of them raised concerns and were overruled. Human decisions and human errors and human incentives layered on top of one another across thousands of institutions and millions of transactions over many years led to this. It was not a single villain. It was a system. You breathe. The room is utterly still. You are almost gone. You think one last time about the newspaper on the kitchen table. Tomorrow morning you will read more of it. You will read about the latest developments. You will drink your coffee. The coffee will be hot and slightly bitter. You will hold the mug with both hands. The morning will be cool. The leaves on the sidewalk will be wet. The alarm will have gone off at 6:45. You will have pressed snooze. You will have lain for a few minutes longer. And then you will have gotten up and shuffled to the bathroom and looked at yourself in the mirror and splashed cold water on your face. And the world will have continued. The enormous, complicated, troubled world. It will have continued. And you will have gotten dressed and eaten your eggs and drunk your juice and listened to the radio and driven to work and sat at your desk and done the things that need to be done. And that is what most of life looks like most of the time, even in October 2008, even in the middle of the most severe financial crisis in 70 years. The eggs, the juice, the drive, the desk, the spreadsheet, the plant that needs watering. You breathe, you breathe, you breathe. You are asleep. Good night.